Hey y'all, welcome back in. How y'all doing? Look at everybody. Look at hi. Let's see who's here. Spin, Sherry, Spin, Henny. Hey Henny. Hey Lauren. Thought y'all be asleep. How y'all doing? So I'm gonna have to wake my child up in a minute, but I want to go ahead and get the rest of Karen going, and then after that, after I make sure the man child is up, then we can discuss what we're gonna do next. Does that work for y'all? So I'm gonna start us where we left off. Probably gonna go to 125 speed, maybe. If y'all are good with that. And then we will discuss what we're gonna do. Because I know what the Coburger thing is, and it's really, I mean, if y'all want to watch it, we can watch it. But it's really just basically a hearing about a hearing. So, but we can talk about it in a minute. I just got to make sure I get Manchild up, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to start this, and I'll be back in a minute. Well, that was rude. Okay, so apparently they didn't save my place. So stand by. I thought they did, but they didn't. So let's see if I can find where we are. Okay, I think it was this dude. Sorry, guys. Give me just a second. I thought I was all queued up. Thought I was doing good, and I was not. Y'all see I don't have an infographic on there or nothing. Took me longer to get home than I expected. And so, yeah. I believe it may have been. Give me a second, y'all. Let me see if this is it. Okay. We're closer than that, or closer than that. Keep going. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. Have a party. Okay, there. I think it's right there. Ah, I found it. All right. I found it. Sorry, y'all. All right. Here we go. Let's share my screen. I had it all set too, y'all, and it just flaked out. All right. There we go. And
Mr. Kelly, I got permission to play it one more time.
I'll try my best.
So again, and by the way, before it's queued up, I would direct your attention more toward the beginning of that 15 seconds. As there are things that happen, I think, that you heard at the end, but you tell us if you can hear, or what you can hear.
Okay.
What did you hear?
I heard someone say fucking dead.
Thanks.
Okay. Any redirect?
Just briefly on. Mr. Kelly, from that video that was just up on the screen, you indicated that when you got to the scene, you saw the cruiser and parked sort of behind the cruiser, correct?
Around the cruiser, yeah.
So from that video, you didn't see the ambulance that you were driving anywhere in, correct?
Correct.
You have no idea whether or not you were even on scene at that time that any of those statements that were made in that video were made, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as patient care was concerned, were sort of all of you, being yourself, firefighter Flamati, firefighter Nuttall, firefighter McLaughlin, firefighter Walsh, firefighter Woodbury, were you all together all the time, or were you doing separate things in separate places during the course of your time on scene?
Separate things in separate places, yeah.
So fair to say that everything that you heard may not be everything that someone else that was there from your department that day heard, correct?
Correct.
And conversely, something that someone else heard may not be necessarily something that you were in a position to hear that day, correct?
Correct.
You also asked some questions about sort of using the shears and cutting off Mr. Oakley's clothing during the ride. Is it your testimony that that was in the back of the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
Was that during the transport, or was that prior? Would you be utilizing shears on a patient, cutting off clothing while the ambulance is in transit?
No.
So if it was in the back of the ambulance, that would have been prior to the ambulance leaving the scene and going to the scenario, correct?
Correct.
Nothing.
Your Honor, the only thing I would offer is the video that I played. I have it.
Right, so we will do that.
Thank
So, Mr. Clerk, it's already been pre-marked, right? Do you not have it, Nancy? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. It has not been pre-marked.
We put it 380.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're all set?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, you're all set. sir.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Call Mr. Francis Walsh to the stand.
Okay. Tori, what do you have for Ted? Numbers.
Watch your step.
You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case down here and should the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thanks, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Francis Walsh, W-A-L-S-H.
And what do you do for it, sir?
I'm a lieutenant paramedic with the Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic with Canton Fire Department?
Just shy of 10 years.
And you indicated that you have a rank of lieutenant, is that correct?
That's correct.
How long have you been a lieutenant with Canton?
Since September of last year.
Now, with regards to, you have certifications both as an EMT and a paramedic, correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to those certifications, when was it first that you sort of received those?
I received my paramedic certification in June of 2014. That's when I was officially certified.
And is that something that you've been subject to sort of continuing educational components and recertification since then?
Yes, yeah, every 2 years we have to recertify and take continuing education classes.
And is your certification up to speed at this point?
Yeah, it's current. I just recertified last month, actually.
Now, if I could turn your attention to the evening of January 28th into January 29th, 2022. Do you recall that day?
I do.
And were you working that day with the fire?
I was.
And what kind of shift were you working on that occasion?
24-hour shift, which is standard.
And is that 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.?
That's correct.
That, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th?
That's correct.
And so where were you assigned to on that particular day?
I was assigned to headquarters, which is on 99 Revere Street, and my position was engine driver.
So fair to say people within your department get different sort of assignments on different apparatus based on the different shift that they're working.
That's correct.
And your assignment that day was the driver of the engine?
Correct, yes, engine 3.
Now, beyond sort of your assignment as the engine driver in that particular shift, What, if any, sort of specialized assignment do you have, or did you have at that time in regards to snow removal?
Yeah, so on that particular shift, I was also the snowplow driver. We have an in-house truck and a snowplow for the fire department, and that was my responsibility on that shift.
How many people within your department have that sort of responsibility when it comes to?
It kind of depends group to group. So some working groups will just kind of rotate and have a different person do it each time. At that time, the group that I was on, I kind of had the most experience plowing, so I was always the go-to person to be in the plow truck when it snowed.
And so with respect to that, Tylee, about what time did you sort of get up on that morning of the 29th?
I believe it was around 4 a.m.
And why was it that you got up at that time?
It was snowing pretty heavily. I mean, we knew the forecast called for a lot of snow. So I got up early and hopped in the plow truck.
And so, and just briefly, in addition to the snow, what, if anything else, did you observe as far as the weather conditions when you were out in the plow truck?
It was very windy. Yeah, just windy and really heavy snow.
Now, at some point, shortly after 6 a.m., does your department get dispatched to a call?
Yes.
And where was the dispatch to, and what was it in regards to?
So I didn't hear the actual dispatch because I was in the plow truck. I was in the rear of headquarters in the plow truck. But my Captain Robery, came out and told me that we had a call for 34 Fairview Road for an unresponsive male party. And he told me, to hop in the engine and head to that call.
And when you hop in the engine, who, if anyone else from your department, was assigned to the same engine as you on that day?
So I had Lieutenant Woodbury to my right in the passenger seat and Firefighter McLaughlin in the rear.
And beyond the engine that you were driving, what, if any, sort of other apparatus from your department was dispatched to the call that day as well?
So that would have been ambulance 1, and then also car 5 went as well. That's kind of like an optional thing, but with a call of that severity, the captain will go as well.
And who was in car 5 on that day?
Captain Robery.
And you drove the engine, is that correct?
That's correct.
If you could describe for the jury sort of what you observed as far as the road condition, visibility, things that like en route from the station to Fairview.
Yeah, so it was really, really poor driving conditions and visibility. I can't recall ever driving to a call of that nature and that severity that slowly. The visibility was so poor that we were just driving extremely slow.
Silence go further away. Okay, and from, if you could describe to the jury sort of the route of travel that you took from Station 1 to Fairview.
Sure. So out of Station 1, take a right onto Revere Street, and then a left onto Sherman Street, a right onto Chapman Street, and then a left onto Fairview.
Now, if you recall, what was sort of the order? You're all sort of dispatched and you're all sort of responding around the same time, being car 5, the ambulance, and the engine, correct?
Correct.
And if you recall, what was sort of the order of the vehicles in response?
So engine 3, we were the last vehicle for the fire department to arrive on scene. So when we arrived on scene, ambulance 1 and car 5 were already on scene.
And if I could ask, just sort of as you're turning onto Fairview Road and you travel down, what, if anything, do you know about sort of the elevation of the roadway as you're driving down to it?
It's a downhill grade. Yeah, it gets a little bit steep at one point.
And the residence that you eventually stopped at or responded to, where was that in location in reference to when you first turn on at Fairview? About how far down is the residence that you eventually go?
Pretty far down. I believe it's one of the last houses on Fairview.
And the residence that we're talking about is, from your perspective, when you're driving down there, is that on your left or right or something?
Left.
And as you're approaching the scene, what is it sort of that you see before you? As how do you know where to stop and where you're going?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, visibility was really poor, but there was ambulance 1, car 5, at least a couple of police cruisers on scene before us, so it's kind of hard to miss that. So that's how we knew where to stop.
Now, in regard to you're responding to an unresponsive man, correct?
Correct.
And just to be clear, at some point you were able to identify, or you were told what the identity was of that unresponsive male patient, correct?
That's correct.
What was his?
John O'Keefe.
And so, with respect to Mr. O'Keefe, as you're approaching the scene, when was the first time that you were able to sort of see where Mr. O'Keefe was on scene when you arrived?
It wasn't until a little bit after we actually arrived on scene that I could see the patient, because as we pulled up, the ambulance was blocking our line of sight to where the patient was. So we couldn't see him right away.
And what was sort of I know you talked about visibility, but as far as had the sun come up yet?
No, it was pitch black.
And so when you arrive on scene, what is it that you and sort of the other people on your engine are doing in relation to patient treatment?
So at that point, I got out of the engine and I started walking towards where the ambulance crew was. But at that point, firefighter McLaughlin was coming around to the rear of the ambulance to get the stretcher out. So I went directly to that to give her a hand with that. And we proceeded to bring that around the front of the ambulance where firefighter Nuttall, Flamati, and Kelly, and I believe Captain Robery were working on the patient.
Now, in reference to where patient Mr. O'Keefe was, where was he? Could you see sort of how in reference to the ground?
I could see the other firefighters and captain that I just mentioned had just put him on the backboard the first time that I saw him. I'd say that was like roughly 10 feet in from the road.
And to that point, how were you able to say that it was approximately 10 feet in from the road?
Just an estimate.
Let me ask you, as far as the stretcher was concerned that you and firefighter McLaughlin retrieved, where did you place that in relation to where Mr. O'Keefe was when you first arrived over?
So we decided to leave it on the street and get it as close to the grass or snow as possible. It was unspoken, but we knew that we didn't want to put the stretcher onto the snow because it would be too unstable. So we put it right up against the curb. So right at the edge of the street where the street meets the yard.
And so you put the stretcher basically right up against the curb and Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 10 feet from that.
That's correct.
And with respect to positioning the stretcher, was that parallel with the curb or perpendicular to it, or how was it?
Parallel.
And you mentioned that obviously Mr. O'Keefe is on scene and there are a number of different firefighters from your department, correct?
That's correct.
There was at least a police cruiser. Did you see any officers sort of around the scene?
Yes, I remember Officer Saraf and Sergeant Good.
And with respect to civilians, what if any civilians did you observe around the scene?
I observed 2 female civilians.
And where were they in relation to where you were or in relation to where Mr. O'Keefe
was? I mean, they were pretty worked up, so they were moving around quite a bit. But I'd say they were somewhere in between myself and the stretcher and where Mr. O'Keefe was.
And did you yourself have any conversation with either of the 2 females as you saw?
I did not directly, no.
And you just testified a little bit before that they were upset. Is this so both of them were?
Yes.
And what, if anything, leads you to that sort of conclusion as far as their demeanor? What, if anything, did you specifically observe?
I mean, I observed one of them like screaming and crying, and they were both just frantically like moving around a lot.
As far as the one that you observed screaming or crying, do you recall specifically what, if anything, that person said?
All I recall her saying was, "Is he alive?"
With respect to Mr. O'Keefe, as far as his clothes, what, if any, observations did you make of his clothes?
The notable observation that I made was that he was missing one shoe, his right shoe.
And where was Mr. O'Keefe when you made that observation of missing one shoe?
It was when we put the stretcher into the ambulance, the stretcher lifts up, so it's kind of right at my face, and that's when I noticed it.
So at the time he was being placed in the ambulance, you only had one shoe based on what you saw.
That's correct.
Now, once Mr. O'Keefe is in the back of the ambulance, where did you go?
So I stayed down at the feet. I was positioned right by his right leg.
And what, if any, difference did you know between sort of the lighting conditions outside on the lawn versus the lighting conditions in the back?
In the back of the ambulance, it was dramatically better.
And so once in the back of the ambulance, what, if anything, did you note or observe as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
I noticed a hematoma on his right eye, and I noticed some blood coming from his nose.
And just to be clear for the record, so when you say hematoma, based on your training experience, can you explain what your understanding of that term is to the jury?
Swelling and bruising.
Now, at some points, with respect to the clothing that Mr. O'Keefe was wearing, what, if anything, did you or other firefighters or paramedics in your department do with reference to Mr. O'Keefe's clothing?
We removed all of his clothing.
And let me first ask, how was that removal sort of accomplished?
Can you repeat that?
When you removed his clothing, how did you do that?
Oh, with trauma shears, basically scissors that cut clothing.
And once sort of Was that pursuant to some sort of protocol, or
Yes.
why was the clothing?
Yeah, on any trauma call, it's protocol to expose the patient so you can see all injuries and you don't miss any injuries.
And once the clothing was removed with the trauma shears, what, if any, additional injuries or anything that you observed?
I noticed some scratches and lacerations on his right arm.
Now, in reference to treatment in the back of the ambulance with regard to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, sort of role in that did you sort of assume, or were you sort of assigned by the lead paramedic?
Yeah, so I was responsible for the IO drill and access to intraosseous access.
Can you explain to the jury sort of what that is and how that's accomplished?
Yeah, so you do that instead of IV access. So when somebody's in cardiac arrest, it's really hard to get an IV. So what you do is you actually drill into a bone, and you can administer medication and fluids like into the bone marrow space.
And so pursuant to, so Mr. O'Keefe was undergoing cardiac arrest, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain your understanding of that term based on your training experience to the jury? What is cardiac arrest?
There's no cardiac function. His heart isn't pumping blood anymore.
And so what, if any, sort of protocols are there as far as medication administration is there in reference to a cardiac arrest?
Yeah, so the frontline medication for that is epinephrine. That's what we gave through the IO access.
What is the purpose of the epinephrine?
Epinephrine, I mean, basically in layman's terms, it gets the heart pumping again, if that's a viable option.
And in addition to the epinephrine, what, if any, other medication was administered through the IO?
I believe that was it. As far as when I was on scene, it was just epinephrine.
Do you recall anything about salines?
Oh yeah, saline as well, but it's not a medication. But yeah, we also administered saline.
What is the purpose of the saline?
Saline is just to increase blood volume.
Now, as far as the transport, Mr. O'Keefe is then taken from the scene to a hospital, correct?
Correct.
Did you go along with the ambulance on the transport to the hospital?
I did not.
So you remained on scene leave for some period of time, correct?
Very briefly, but yes.
And you referenced some officers from the Canton Police Department that were on scene when you were on scene, correct?
Correct.
And without reference to anything that was said, which of them, if any, did you have any conversation with prior to leaving the scene?
Sergeant Good.
And just as far as what you told Sergeant Good, what, if anything, did you relay to him before you left the scene?
I relayed to him that there were signs of trauma in the patient.
And did you give it any sort of further explanation as to the signs of trauma that you observed?
Yes, I believe I told him what I told you about the hematoma on the eye and the blood in the nose and the scratches and lacerations on the arm.
So you told Sergeant Good what you just testified to this jury that you observed?
I believe so.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for exhibit number 18. And Firefighter Walsh, what's up on the screen is exhibit 18. Do you recognize that?
Yes, 34 Fairview Road.
Is that a fair, minus whatever the weather conditions are, fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed that day at 34 Fairview?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Mr. Regal?
Yes.
So this is the anticipated form.
Okay.
And so Firefighter Walsh, if I could ask, using that laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's attention to where within this photograph did you see that you observed Mr. O'Keefe's body when you first arrived?
Right in that general area.
Thank you. May I have one moment, Ron?
Yes.
No further questions for this witness, Ron.
All right. Cross-examination?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I just want to ask you about the woman that you saw on scene who appeared to be screaming and crying. Would you agree with me that she stood out to you because she appeared to be the most upset
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes.
and the loudest?
Yes.
She appeared to be crying more than others,
Yes.
and she's screaming, right?
Yes.
And what you heard her say, I understand your testimony, was that she just said, "Is he alive?" Correct?
That's what I recall. Correct.
In a loud voice,
Yes.
in a distraught voice,
Yes.
while she was crying.
Correct.
I have nothing further.
There's nothing, Mr. Lally, right?
No.
All right, you are all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who is your next witness?
Ms. Katie McLaughlin.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case down here is for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You can have a seat. I just need you to speak into that microphone nice and loud.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your name and spell your last name, please?
Katie McLaughlin, McLaughlin.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a firefighter paramedic for the town of Canton.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic in the town?
Probably about 7 years at this point.
And prior to working for the Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you do sort of within that general field?
I worked as an EMT basic for Brewster Ambulance. Went to paramedic school. I eventually became a paramedic for Brewster Ambulance, and I worked there for a few years before getting on the fire department.
And just briefly, but prior to becoming a paramedic or working as a paramedic, what if any sort of training did you receive in regard, or certification did you receive in regard to being a paramedic?
So it's a 2-year schooling where you have about a year of didactic. There's a lecture portion for about a year. And then after that, there's about a year to a year and a half of clinical training that's done in an ER and then done in an ambulance. So that whole period is around 2 years.
And prior to working at the Canton Fire Department, you received certification from the state or some other sources being a paramedic, correct?
Yes, it's through the state and through a national registry.
And both those certifications through the state and the national registry, are those granted sort of forever, or is there like a continuing educational component and a recertification process?
So you recertify every 2 years. You have to take continuing education classes in that 2-year period. And that's just on a 2-year cycle you recertify.
And your certification is up to date at this point, is that correct?
Yes.
And if I could turn your attention to the dates of January 28, 2022 into January 29, 2022. Do you recall those dates?
Yes.
And were you working with the Canton Fire Department on those dates?
Yes.
Do you recall what kind of shift you were working from the 28th to the 29th?
It was just my regular 24-hour shift.
And 24-hour shifts in Canton Fire is essentially 8 a.m. to 8 a.m., is that correct?
Correct.
And where were you sort of assigned within the town of Canton Fire Department on that day?
So I was on the engine for that shift. So I was the third person on the engine. There's an engine driver, there's an officer, and then there's a third person who's in the back.
And so your sort of role with respect to the engine, is there sort of like a name for that position?
Some people call it like the back step. Yeah.
And which station house were you assigned to on that engine?
The station 1, which is 99 Revere Street.
And in addition to yourself, who, if anyone else, was assigned to the other sort of roles on the engine?
Frank Walsh was the engine driver that day, and Greg Woodbury was the lieutenant on the engine that day.
Now, turning your attention to that morning of the 29th, do you recall about what time you got up or what time you went outside that day?
I think we were up maybe a little before 6 because it was snowing, and we had to like shovel the front apron. So we were up maybe 5 a.m.
So when you were up around that time, around 5 a.m. and outside, you were outside shoveling, is that correct?
Yep. Intermittently.
Sorry?
Intermittently, yeah.
So during the times that you were outside shoveling, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the weather or conditions at that point?
It was snowing pretty heavily. It had been snowing. We were shoveling, and it was pretty cold and windy.
And if you know, around that time that you initially sort of went out for shoveling, about how much snow had accumulated at that point?
I don't know how much. I mean, enough for us to shovel that front apron, but I don't know how much.
Now, sometime shortly after 6 a.m., were you and other members of your department dispatched to a call?
Yes.
And where were you dispatched to, and what was that dispatching?
So the call came in as a man down in the snow or a man unresponsive in the snow, and the call was 434 Fairview Road.
And about how long was it from the time that you sort of received that dispatch and go sort of on the engine to do that resident on Fairview Road?
How long?
Yes.
We're on the truck and going probably within a few minutes at most.
And so in addition to yourself and Firefighter Walsh and Lieutenant Woodbury, what, if any, other sort of apparatus from your station was dispatched to this call for?
The ambulance was dispatched as well, and I believe the command car 5, also was dispatched to the call.
And as far as car 5, if you recall, who was in car 5?
At the time, Captain Robery.
And with respect to the ambulance, if you know who, if anyone, was assigned to the ambulance and went with the ambulance?
Firefighter Kelly and Firefighter Flamati were on that ambulance, and I believe Tim Nuttall was also there. He came in early, and so he jumped on the ambulance as well.
And with respect to when you get to Fairview Road, do you recall what sort of order the vehicles were in as far as car 5 and the ambulance and fire engine?
I think car 5 was maybe first, and then the ambulance was in front of us, and then we pulled up behind the ambulance.
And so when you sort of arrive on scene, pull up behind the ambulance, other than vehicles from your department, what, if any, other sort of vehicles did you observe or see on scene that day?
I noticed there were multiple police vehicles and at least one civilian vehicle.
Now, obviously, you're responding to a report of a non-responsive male, are you correct?
Yes.
And when you're sort of first arriving on scene, or just in reference to when you arrived on scene, when was the first time that you were able to see that non-responsive male?
So when I got out of the engine, I went right back to the ambulance to get the stretcher because I knew that from wherever they were, they seemed to be kind of off of the road. So I got the stretcher with Firefighter Walsh, I believe, and then we brought the stretcher as close as we could to the patient, and that was like parallel to the curb, and that would be the first time that I observed them working on a patient.
And so if I could just ask you, just with regard to sort of those duties as the backstep person, so what is sort of the duties and responsibilities of the backstep person on the engine to this kind of medical call?
So the role of the person in the back of the engine is, it kind of is dependent upon what that lead paramedic needs you to do. You're there to assist the ambulance in any way that they need. So that could be assisting with extrication of a patient. It could be obtaining information about a patient or bystanders. It could be assisting with patient care if they need you in the back of the ambulance. It really depends on what they need you to do for that particular call.
And turning back to your testimony just a moment ago, you said they were over rendering sort of patient care. Is that correct?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I noted Tim, I noted Tony, and there were a lot of people that seemed to be around that area. So I'm not sure exactly who else was there, but I did note Tony and Tim were in that area.
As far as sort of the other people in that area where Tony and Tim, so people sort of beyond people from your department, what, if any, other sort of people did you notice around that area?
I don't know specifically. What do you mean, like
as far as
outside of the?
Right. So outside of fire department personnel in that area, what, if any, observations did you make of those people? Who were those people?
Well, at that point, I couldn't really make out like the identities of like other people. I noted Tim and Tony, but I didn't really pick up on who anyone else was at that point. They were still like off of the road at that point.
And so from where they're positioned with regard to the patient, just for clarity purposes, you were subsequently learning the identity of the patient, correct?
Yes.
And who did you learn him?
John O'Keefe.
And where you and firefighter Walsh were with the stretcher, how far away from where you were was Mr. O'Keefe and the other firefighters?
They were, I don't know that I could give a number, several feet away. They were like, I remember kind of seeing a fire hydrant, but I don't know exactly number wise what that would be.
And from your observation of where Mr. O'Keefe was, could you tell how his body was positioned?
He was supine, so he was lying on his back or face up.
And what, if anything, by the time that you arrived with firefighter Walsh on the stretcher, what, if anything, could you see that firefighters Malnati and or Nuttall or anyone else was doing with reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
By that point, it seemed like they had already got him pretty much secured on a backboard, and they were ready to move him to the stretcher.
And once Mr. O'Keefe is then moved with the backboard from where he was to the stretcher where you are, what happened?
So I remember Tony was kind of at the head of the stretcher. I was standing on the side. There was a woman next to me, and Tony said to me, "Can you try to figure out what happened?" And he kind of motioned to this woman that was next to me.
And so firefighter Malnati, who's the lead paramedic, directs you to ask questions of this female, correct?
Yes.
And fair to say this woman that was next to you, you didn't know her, you never met her before?
No.
From your conversations with her that day, do you see that woman in the courtroom today?
Yes.
You can just direct us to where she's seated or an article of clothing she's wearing. That's a record of like identification kind of by the
Okay.
Now, with respect to this woman, she's standing next to you when you're at the side of the stretcher, correct?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you sort of initially make as far as her demeanor, or how was she sort of acting when you first started to engage?
She seemed very upset. Very upset.
And when you say she seemed very upset, what about her did you observe that made you say that?
Just her facial expression. She was just visibly distraught.
And so as far as your questions, what type of questions are you asking, or what type of information are you looking for from this person?
So just basic demographic info, who the patient is, his name, his date of birth. And then as far as any more questioning, you're trying to gather information that would basically help explain how this person ended up in the scenario that they're in. So did he have any medical problems? Does he take any medications daily? Does he have any allergies to medications? I was asking those questions.
And as you're asking those questions, what, if anything, is the defendant is doing while you're asking those questions?
She answered who the patient was, his birthday. I think she answered maybe some of those initial medical questions that I asked. She was, as I said, she's very distraught. She was kind of moving around the scene a little bit. So I was just kind of following her, and then we came to a stop at one point, and I continued to ask one more question.
What was that one more question?
So at that point, I asked her if there had been any significant trauma that happened before this.
What, if anything, did she say?
So she said, "I hit him." She repeated it. There was a woman standing across from her who I believe at that point said, "You're hysterical. You need to calm down. You're hysterical." She repeated, "I hit him." And there was a police officer who was in that vicinity kind of with us who replied, "You what?" She repeated it one more time. And that officer then signaled to somebody, "Get Goody down here," which I'm assuming would be the sergeant.
So when you have this conversation, if you recall, you mentioned that the other person who was across from you was just, was that something from your department or an officer or a civilian, or who was that?
So I was standing, Karen Reed was to my right. There was another woman to the left of me, kind of across from her. And then there was a police officer kind of, not directly across from me, but within like within the same kind of area that was more closer to Karen, I would say.
You know who that officer was?
I don't.
You know who the female or civilian person that was crossing? You know what that person's name is?
No.
And with respect to when Ms. Reed said this repeatedly, I hit it. Can you describe to the jury sort of the tonality of that? Like, how did
She was very, very upset. She seemed hysterical, I would even say. Just very upset.
Once you received that information, did you follow up with any other questions to Ms. Reed at that point?
At that point, I did not. I have to drive the ambulance, so it's a time-sensitive situation. So I knew I had to drive the ambulance. It was said in the presence of the police officer, so I felt like that was the appropriate, that information was appropriately transferred. And I just felt, based on her demeanor, I don't think it would have been productive for me to continue to ask her questions at that point.
And so after asking and receiving that answer, if I hit him, where did you go?
So I went to the ambulance.
And in reference to the ambulance, did you go to the back of the ambulance, front of the ambulance? Where did you go?
So I went to the back of the ambulance where the patient care was happening.
And as far as the information that you had received from the defendant, did you relay that information to any of the other firefighters from your department in the back of the ambulance?
I did.
And you recall who was there in the back of the ambulance when you relayed that?
Tony was there, Tim, I think maybe firefighter Kelly, firefighter Walsh maybe might have been in there at that point.
Now, as far as when you get to the back of the ambulance, what, if anything, did you do with reference to assist or help as far as patient care with regards to Mr. O'Keefe?
I didn't assist or partake in any patient care.
Now, prior to putting Mr. O'Keefe into the back of the ambulance and prior to your conversation with the defendant, what, if any, observations had you made during the brief time that you were on the side of the stretcher of Mr. O'Keefe and any injuries?
I noted he had injuries to his face. I noticed some blood from his nose, from his mouth, and most notably, he had some swelling to his eyes, mostly the right eye, and a laceration above the right eye. And same as far as when you went to the back of the ambulance to relay the information that you have been asked to obtain. What, if any, injuries did you observe from Mr. O'Keefe once he was back? Oh, I'm sorry. I observed those injuries in the back of the ambulance. I didn't observe those injuries while he was out on the stretcher. I didn't get a good look at him.
You really hadn't got a good look until
Right.
back.
Right.
Now, as far as you indicated, you drove the ambulance from Fairview. Where did you go to?
Good Samaritan Hospital.
And as you were driving that ambulance along the roads from Canton to Brockton, what, if anything, did you know as far as visibility, road conditions, things?
There was poor visibility. The roads weren't plowed yet, so it was took probably longer than usual based on the conditions.
And I apologize, but if I can take you just a step back further for a moment, just in reference to when you're in the back of the ambulance, you indicated the injuries that you observed. What, if any, observations did you make as far as the clothing of Mr. O'Keefe?
I noted that he was wearing jeans. I noticed a lighter, like a black zip-up jacket or sweatshirt. It was like a lighter jacket. I noticed he had one sneaker on, and that was it.
You recall which foot the sneaker was on?
I don't.
All right, could I see counsel for a second, please?
I don't know why she has to keep interrupting. Like, I ain't never seen a more interrupting judge than this judge. I don't know about y'all, but usually they go to sidebar when the attorneys request to go to sidebar. Like, I don't know. I am confused. Where's dad? Where's his dad at? That's his mom with her hand on her face in the front row. The timing is crap, Kel. Behind her, that just touched her glasses. That I think is her sister. And to the left of the mom with the brown shirt, the bald head, blue shirt, bald head, is the brother, I believe. I don't see dad. Don't see dad. Interesting. This judge is weird. I mean, like, she ain't figured out by now that her chair is squeaky. Like, somebody ain't brought that up. She definitely has a control problem. Yes, his family. Her family was back behind her. I think they still are. I want to know where dad is.
Just trying to figure out some logistical things because we're going to go on a view tomorrow. We're going to finish with the testimony first, and we'll go on the view after we finish with firefighter testimony. So, but a couple of things about the view. Please dress comfortably. I really appreciate everybody's dressing respectfully for court, but wear comfortable shoes at least for tomorrow. So those 3 cautions: please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know. And for the view, I'll give you some preliminary instructions on that just before we leave. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow's a full day.
All right, for the court, please. Chris Holding.
All right, y'all. Well, it sounds like they're going to have court before they go tomorrow. Weird. So, well, they were finishing at 1, and so we got almost there. And then I sped us up. So the view they're talking about, Spins, is they're taking a field trip over to the house, the 34 Fairmont, the house where he was found in front of. And they're taking the jury over there. So I guess they're having court first, and they'll all meet there, and then they'll go have the view, and then they'll come back. I don't know. That's very odd. It seems like they would have just set it up, but whatever. So I guess we'll do court in the morning. We'll say 8:45 for that. So the Koberger thing, if y'all want to watch it, we can watch it. Was basically a hearing about a hearing. So Spins, is what typical to go to the house? No, it happens. It happens a lot on murder. I mean, I won't say a lot. It happens. It happens, especially if there's some question. So, like with Michael Peterson, he was somebody who was accused of killing his wife, and that she fell down the stairs. And so the defense was trying to say that, the prosecution was trying to say that he beat her with a fireplace poker and then pushed her down the stairs. And the defense was trying to say that she fell down the stairs and that there was no way that he could have lifted the fireplace poker in the stairwell because it was so narrow. If y'all ever want to watch a case, y'all go watch that case. My ex-husband did the search warrant. But yeah, so they took the jury to see the staircase to kind of, and I guess I have to look it up. I guess one side or the other requests it, and then the other side can, argue that they don't want to go or whatever, or that they do. Sometimes they do want to go. Doesn't always happen. Like with Adam Montgomery, there were so many different places and so many different states, it would have been hard for them to do that. With Chad Daybell and Lori Daybell, there's really no question as to where they were found. So that's kind of not one of those ones. So I think it's just up to the attorneys to request if they want to go or not. I'm not sure who requested on this case. I wish we could go with them, but we cannot. And at least I don't think there'll be any news crews there. There might be, but I don't think so. I know Karen Reed is not going because they didn't want any fanfare or any, kind of distraction. So I would be interested just to see the layout, like in real time, because they're saying he's like 10, 12, between 10, 12 visualization. Yes, I'm going to go with that. Visualization. But they're saying he was like 10 to 12 feet off of the roadway. And I'm just not buying that she pushed him that far with her car. Anyways, that's just me. But so the Koberger thing was a hearing for the hearing. Basically, there's a hearing on May 14th, motion to compel discovery. The defense is saying that the state has not given them all of the discovery that they have. The state is saying that they have given all the discovery. So now the defense has done a motion to compel. The state was arguing that it needed to be under seal, meaning they wouldn't advertise the not advertise, but they wouldn't stream the hearing, and that it would be not public record. The defense argued that it needed to be all public record except for the couple of things that are under seal currently. At the end of the day, the judge decided that he is going to seal it. And so I'm sure we'll get an idea of what happens there, but we won't be able to watch it. Then they also decided that they're setting hearings every 2 weeks going forward for right now, so that there's already hearings set. If they don't need them, they can cancel them, but if they do need them, then they'll have them. So that was pretty much what happened. So the next hearing is on the 14th, and that's the motion to compel, and it will be sealed, so we will not be able to see it unless they decide they've got some stuff to file. Both the defense and the state have stuff to file by the 10th and the 13th. So maybe by then they'll decide that they'll open it, but I doubt it. And then there's another hearing on the 16th for some other motions. That one sounds like it's going to be open, but I don't know for sure. So that was basically it. They are going to set a hearing regarding the alibi. The state says that they're not, the alibi isn't sufficient enough. There isn't enough information. And so I'm sure they're going to argue about that. That's not what's on the 16th. They have to set another hearing for that, but that will be done on the 14th or the 16th. So that was it. If y'all want to watch it, we can watch it. It's basically both of them standing up talking about how they, and Thompson pounding his chest, and Ann Taylor being Ann Taylor, and and judge being judge. So, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to it, but if you want to watch it, I am happy to play it for you. And we can discuss it afterwards. I think it was like an hour or so long. And then we have, so I need to decide, need to figure out, that threw me off for tomorrow because I didn't think they were going to have a hearing or they weren't going to have open court in the morning. So, and I wonder, I don't know, y'all. I hate when they do that. So I guess for tomorrow we will plan on being here at 8:45. If for some reason they don't have court or they have partial court or whatever, we can catch up on Daybell from today. And then if they do have court, then we're just going to have to play catch up when we can play catch up. I read somewhere that it was from 9 to 1 tomorrow. I thought that was the visitation to the house, but maybe that's court. I'm not sure. So, and then I can check with Jenny if y'all are interested, if we're behind on Daybell, if you want to maybe do some on Saturday, I could possibly do that. But I have to check with Jenny first because I didn't talk to her about that. So what do y'all think? Tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts. Talk to me. Also, if you would, please do all the YouTube things, like and subscribe and share, tell your friends. Still trying to get Jenny to 500. What do you think? Talk to me. Speak to me. Don't leave me up here by myself talking to myself. To me, it's all good, QB. And Henny and Lauren, y'all just want to go to bed. Y'all should already be in bed. Y'all should already be in bed. It's late. Early. Early? Oh, it's 10 o'clock there. Oh, it's not bad. You're not bad. Right? Is that right? Is it 10 there? I think it's 10 there. Yes, 22:22. I knew that. I saw that. All right. So 10 o'clock. Yeah, p.m. So that's what I thought. Yeah, 22:22. That's 10 p.m. 10:22 p.m. Right? Okay. So I'm going to I think I'm going to call it here if y'all don't mind. I planned on doing Kohlberger, but it's really like meh. I mean, it really was it really was a hearing on a hearing on a hearing on a hearing. And then I can chill for a while. Got beat up in PT again. They tried to fool me. They gave me a massage first. And I was like, what are you buttering me up for? So they felt like they're trying to find ways to help me not hurt so bad when I'm done. So they had a massager thing. And so they did my shoulder, my back, and I loved it. And then they beat me up. And then they put the Bionic Woman stuff on me. He did add a new, what did he add today? He added a new hip one. Oh yeah, they added a new hip one. And then Tuesdays when I go back and they're supposed to add something new and I don't know what it is, but I don't like the sound of it because it sounds like it's going to be really bad. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so because after spins, they do all the bionicle stuff. So after they put me on the bionic arm with the ice and they put the tens, or well, this one is the infrared one. And they do the heat pack and the vibration on my back. So what they were trying to do was they did the massage before to kind of loosen everything up. Then they made me do all the things. And um and then they put me on the soothing stuff afterwards. So it was kind of a double whammy. I just wanted to lay there and get massaged. I didn't want to do any of the exercises. I mean, who wants to do that? So but it was good. It was good. It was good. But I'm tired. They wore me out yesterday. Yeah, my PT, it is painful. My PT, they're amazing. I'm not gonna lie to you, Spins. They're amazing. And I was talking to them again today about M because she goes to a place that she's always gone to, and they don't talk to her and tell her things. And so I was talking to them today because I'm trying to get her to come over to where I go, and they're like, it's because there's like 15 PTs at any given time, and they're all got patients and they're all doing stuff, and it's like where I go, there's 3 PTs, and it's kind of like it's real quiet, and everybody's just doing their thing, and I don't know. I like it. I like it. They've been very good to me. They're the ones that got me the bionic arm for at home. They got me the TENS unit for at home. They got me the pillow, the lumbar pillow for at home. So, I mean, ultimately, my nurse case manager got it, but they're the ones that recommended and wrote the letter for it. So, I like them, but it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating. So, anyways, so you had a little trial and you had a little PT and you had a little QB, and it's probably enough for one day. um, yeah, but it's even more painful not to go, Lauren. It's better. I'm finding I don't want to go either, but I am finding that now that I've stuck with it, it's actually like so. Okay, with my arm, with my shoulder, I had like a frozen shoulder, which is basically it's locked in a position and it will not move, and it doesn't matter if you get the strongest of strong men. They can't pull it. It's locked. And so I was going to have surgery to release the muscles. And then I was going to have surgery to repair the rotator cuff. But they decided to have me go to PT first to see if we could get it loosened up. So it has been extremely painful, but I can move my arm and I can use my shoulder. You're sweet, Spins. I don't know. I could be a lot. And so, but now I can move my shoulder, my arm, and it still hurts, but I can move it. So now I go see the surgeon on the 7th to see if he's going to do surgery to repair the rotator cuff. So yeah, I'm broken, y'all. Y'all don't even know. I am broken. I'm broken. They haven't even addressed my hip and my neck yet because they have to fix my back and my shoulder before they do that. My ankle is better, but it was basically my whole right side was ranched. Where's Jenny? Ranched. She ranched my whole right side. So, yeah, it's good. The problem, Henny, is that I'm not getting any pain relief. So I think that's where the surgery will come in. But we'll see. We'll see what he says. So I go there Tuesday. But anywho, I guess that's about it. And so I'm gonna go and chill and yeah, it does hurt. But the more you go, I promise you, Lauren, the more you go, the easier it gets. Like even today with the new exercise that they gave me, when I first started doing it, I couldn't do it. And I was struggling. And by the end, and I only do 20 of each one. And by the end, it like had loosened me up some. So I get it. I get it because there's days when I don't want to go. And there's days where I have not gone, and I have seen that it's yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, Margaret, you know the frozen shoulder, that is not, it's not cool. It's not cool. You could take a Mack truck, and well, okay, maybe not that, but it helps, Lauren, it helps. But the frozen shoulder, yeah, the surgeon actually grabbed with both of his, yeah, yeah. That's the thing. They were going to do surgery on mine, Margaret, because they couldn't break it loose, and so I just had to fight through the physical therapy, and it was bad. But I don't have to have surgery for that, so that's good. That is good. I appreciate that, Sherry. It's been a ride. It's been a ride. So I'm thankful to have you guys and to have Jenny, and yeah, my cortisone shots don't work. They don't work. It did, okay, I lied. It allowed for my shoulder to move. However, I had very bad reactions to them. And each subsequent one that I got, I had even more reaction. And so I am probably, my cats are about to fight. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, so I don't think I'm getting any more injections. Yeah, unfortunately, Margaret, they've been more detrimental to me than they've been helpful. So I can't. I can't. I'm already autoimmune. It has made me so even more. My immunity is shot. And I had like a full body histamine response, and it's not good. So, anyways, we could go on and on. I love you guys. I'm really happy that y'all joined me today, and that you put up with me, and were patient with me. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to set up everything for tomorrow. I will set it up. It'll be Karen Reed to start with. If we go to Daybell, I was trying to say Chad Guy Daybell, and that just came out wrong. If we go to Daybell, then we'll figure out if we just want to switch it up, or I'll just switch the title or whatever. But anyways, I will see y'all in the morning, 8:45. Set your things to ding, the dinger things. And I will see y'all in the morning. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.